my name is Kevin Doherty. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Nepal from 1981 to 83, and I built water supply systems. A great memory I have, I was back there again 3 years ago for trekking, and I went back to my village of Darali, just south of Gorkha. And I remember at the time we built those systems, they told us they'd last about 7 years. That was the average lifespan because of the landslides. And one of the two systems that we built was still working, a 7-kilometer long system. Every tap on that system was still working 28 years later. So I was happy to see that. The other one wasn't, but one of them survived all these years. So anyway, it was very good to see that. Hilly terrain, and you have monsoon seasons, so there's a lot of landslides that will tend to wipe away the pipe that serves the water supply system. And so you get about 7 years out of them. That's what they said back in those days, and then they'd fall into disrepair. So, but yeah.
Your transportation to get there, what was that like?
From Kathmandu, it was about a 4-hour Jeep ride to the trailhead, and then about a 3 or 4 hour walk up into the hills from there to get to this village. And I also met my wife in that village. She worked for Save the Children, so she showed up in the village one day, and we're still married all these years later. Yeah.
Any other?
No, that's about all.
My name is Jim Pastilli. I was in the Peace Corps in Nepal from 1976 to 1978 in a group called N56 Community Water Supply.
Okay.
Oh man, it's like going into Shangri-La. I mean, this is what I wanted to do, and now I was there. It was July, so it was very green, very lush. I mean, Kathmandu is a botanical garden. It really is a beautiful place in that sense. And I'll never forget the ride from the airport to our hotel. And, it's the mud huts, and there were some thatched roofs, some slate roofs, some metal roofs, It was not America anymore. And I remember looking at the people, looking out the window as the bus went by, and going, wow, these people are really poor. I remember that same trip 2 years later when I left. And I go, wow, these people are really well off. Because going from the capital city out into the village, I mean, there were kids that had never seen a white boy before that started crying when they saw me. The water buffalo were not afraid of a 3-year-old Nepali kid, but boy, they were stomping and snorting at me like crazy. And I think one of the great experiences I had is one day way out in the village, way out in the mountains, after we're all done with training, and been there for over a year, got assigned to a very remote village. And I remember listening to 2 little girls, maybe 5 or 6 years old, taking a herd of goats right past my house. And they were jibber-jabbering away in Nepali, and I couldn't understand a single word they were saying. And I'm listening, and I says, I know what they're doing. They're speaking Pig Latin Nepali. I could see the pattern in it, but I could not figure out a single word. So they could always speak over my head. But if they wanted me to understand what they were saying, they had no problem. And I'm sure I was painting some pretty good pictures in simple Nepali to them, because they understood what I wanted when I needed work done and things like that. Getting anything to eat in Nepal is a primary goal of each day. One of the stories I tell is we're in Pokhara, the same 3 guys that were in this training village, we got moved out west to Pokhara as kind of a staging station. It's like call it a state capital in Nepal. And again, it was a fairly large city and a touristy area. Had one of the few lakes in Nepal. It was beautiful. The Himalayas laid out to the north every day. It was just a gorgeous place to be. And lots of food and fruits and vegetables, and foreigners came through, the tourists, so they had all the amenities for them, Coca-Cola, beer, that kind of stuff. So we rented a place from a local family, and we use that as our launch pad, you might say. bachelor pad. And we came home one time. This family was again fairly well off, and they're teaching their 3-year-old son, give me 1 rupee. The only words they knew in English, give me 1 rupee. And we says, oh, ma'am, you know what you're doing. As tourists, we don't really want you sitting there begging and that. That's not the right thing to teach him. But she looked us right in the eyes and says, if he comes home with 1 rupee, he's fed himself for the day.
Interesting.
What more can you say? Well, one of the things I said about Nepal, and this is kind of personal, but I don't mind sharing this, is when I was in school, I had a beard and hair down to here. And one of the few communications I read in the Peace Corps literature was, don't lay no trips on Nepal, and they don't like hippies. So before I left, I cut my hair clean like it is now and shaved my face, and my professors had never seen me like that. I remember the shock on their faces, but it's one of the things I think the Peace Corps teaches you is not to be judgmental. And that was another great experience, is that you open the Rising Star Nepal newspaper, the only English newspaper in Nepal, and their view of the world events in America is so different. And all of a sudden you go, oh, there is another view to the world from the one I've been looking at for 27 years, from inside America. We had a reunion last month in Vermont. 12 of the 21 guys got together and we started putting our locations on a map in Nepal, and they were all around me. But I really didn't know where they were at the time because I hadn't been to those villages. And I'm 3 days walk this way, I'm 5 days walk that way. Okay, never been there. Didn't do it. Oh, you know what? I remember now. I did a survey of the people, and there was like 250 people and 500 head of cattle, because I was calculating the demand on the water supply. Okay. That was written in a survey book I was looking at last month as part of my reminiscing.
Now, the 250 people, about how big of an area were they in? Are we talking about?
Square mile.
About a square mile. Okay.
Yeah, plastered on the side of a 6,000-foot hill.
Now they had like little farms?
Yep. The whole mountainside was terraced.
And so they would grow vegetables and have...
And rice and corn. They grew a few potatoes and millet.
And the livestock would be?
Water buffalo and cows. Chickens.
And chickens too, okay. No other livestock, goats or anything?
They did have goats. Yep, you're right, they had goats. They're throwing a party. And they decide they're going to roast a goat. So they get a nice big red goat out, pull out one of their classic kukris, cross kukris on this right here, the symbol in Nepal, the Gurkha soldiers, and they just whack the head off of this thing with a single blow. And now the jugular veins are spurting blood, and they got 2 stainless steel tumblers, and they're collecting the blood. And I can remember this, no matter how poor my Nepali was, he goes, Ragat Kani Manchiauni. It means blood-eating people come forward. And out of the crowd, people came up, and it's almost like First Communion, they're just drinking this raw blood. And I go, these people are, in their own word, in their own language, the word to describe themselves is jungly. And they looked like they had just come out of the jungle. They were just, relative to the people in the city, they're relatively clean and wear some semblance of clothing that might have vestiges of Westernism. No, these people are dressed in rags and traditional. These people are poor. Most of them are barefoot. And there's no barbershop, just whoever locally cuts hair, that's how you got your hair. These people looked wild, and now they're there drinking raw blood, and I'm going, what did I get myself into now? Who's next for dinner, But they were very glad to see me, and they treated me so well. so well. I'm actually
You're a
humbled.
Storyteller. Go with more stories. That's good.
Yeah, I'm so humbled by